Welcome to Deception Diaries. Please like this video and subscribe. Deception Diaries. My beautiful wife was very playful tonight. After dinner, while we were relaxing on the couch, she jumped onto my lap and covered me with kisses and hugs. Even more playful than usual. My friends call me Donnie. I met Sandra over 5 years ago and we just celebrated our 4th wedding anniversary. We met shortly after I left the Marines. During my time in the military, I got really into weight training in self-defense, and I even spent a year as a drill instructor, training new soldiers. It was an exciting job, but I wanted to do more with my life. So, when I left the service, I used my savings from those 4 years to start my own gym and health training business. It became successful quickly and I dedicated all my time to growing it and helping others get fit. At 6 feet 4 inches and 255 pounds of muscle, I gave my clients confidence that I could help them transform their bodies. Watching my clients transform from insecure to confident and strong in just 6 months was very rewarding. I met Sandra, the sister of one of my clients, and we instantly clicked. Even though we are very different in size, she's 5 feet 4 inches and 145 pounds lighter than me, we made a charming couple. Sandra weighed only 110 pounds and had a sweet innocence at 22, while I, at 26, had more life experience. She didn't like training much, but we enjoyed spending time together and doing things we both loved. Our bond grew and we became a couple, eventually getting married a year later. Sandra was an amazing partner, always attentive and affectionate, and met all my needs with unwavering devotion. Her playful innocence was one of the many things I loved about her. While some might mistake her vivacity for flightiness or dismiss her as a dumb blonde, I found her endearing. She lacked common sense at times. As a health trainer with a chiseled physique and undeniable charm, I constantly faced advances from female clients. It became a perpetual struggle to maintain boundaries, prompting me to install video cameras throughout the gym to safeguard against potential false accusations of sexual assault from rejected suitors. I took these precautions to protect both my business and my reputation, ensuring Sandra could remotely monitor the activities for added peace of mind. Sandra knows the depth of my devotion, and I consistently express my love for her. Financially, we're secure, my business thrives, and Sandra supplements our income with her work as a real estate agent. Last Sunday afternoon, as we lounged in the living room with a bottle of wine, Sandra's playful demeanor surpassed its usual bounds. She giggled incessantly, surprising me by leaping onto my lap, showering me with affectionate kisses reminiscent of a carefree teenager. I couldn't deny the warmth that spread within me. Her attention always made me feel cherished. However, our tranquil moments swiftly shifted when Sandra, her hand gently running through my hair, flashed that heart-melting smile and casually dropped a bombshell. "You're okay with that, right?" It took me a moment to process her words. Initially, I brushed it off, basking in her radiant smile. When my silence persisted, she repeated her question with a touch of sweetness. "You don't mind, right?" Confusion clouded my mind as I struggled to comprehend. "Sandra, what exactly are you asking me?" "I'm sorry, but I don't quite follow." "Oh, you silly." She chuckled softly. "Matthew from the office invited me to dinner next Friday, and I may have agreed." As her words sank in, my initial disbelief morphed into understanding, yet disbelief lingered. "Wait, are you asking for my permission to go on a dinner date with Matthew next week?" "It's not really a date, just dinner and maybe a movie," she reassured. Her tone light yet tinged with anticipation. I sat there, utterly stunned, my mouth agape in disbelief. Could it be true? Was my devoted wife, the love of my life, really asking for my permission to go on a date with another man? "Sandra, that's what a date is. Are you seriously thinking about going out with someone else?" I managed to say, struggling to understand the seriousness of her request. "He's just a colleague, Donnie. We get along great at work, and he always makes me smile. It's not like a traditional date, more like drinks after work." But in this case, dinner and a movie, she explained, not seeming to realize the impact of her words. My mind reeled. How could she fail to grasp the enormity of her request? Sandra, you know I've never entertained the thought of being with another woman. How can you even contemplate going out with another man? Please don't be jealous. He's nothing like you, and it's just one evening. My feelings for you remain unchanged. He means nothing to me, but I want to do this. I hope you're not upset. She pleaded, her words falling on ears numb with shock. Madness threatened to consume me, but years of military training kept me composed as I swiftly devised a plan. Ah, you've already agreed. I see, I murmured, feigning understanding as I reached for my cell phone. With Sandra still perched on my lap, absent-mindedly playing with my hair, I dialed the number of a persistent suitor who had pursued me for months. Hi, Mary, it's Donnie. I spoke into the phone, noting the confusion flickering across my wife's face. I'm doing well, thank you. Say, is that offer still open for Friday night? It is. Fantastic. My wife just mentioned she's interested in an open marriage, and you immediately sprung to mind. It sounds like fun. I'll catch up with you this week to plan it out. Bye. Sandra ceased her hair rubbing and shocked me a puzzled glance. Who's Mary? She's one of my clients. We share a good rapport, and she's quite amusing. So, we're going out on Friday night, just like you suggested, I said casually. To my surprise, Sandra's face turned angry, and she quickly got off my lap, hurling accusations at me. I couldn't believe she didn't see the hypocrisy in her reaction. I can't believe you're going out with some girl, probably some promiscuous woman. I won't tolerate your infidelity. Donnie, that's unacceptable, she said, trying not to laugh. I replied, but it's perfectly acceptable for you to go out with a coworker. It's different, she retorted adamantly. How so? I pressed. It was just a casual naive for some enjoyment. She defended. Well, that's precisely what I'll be doing as well. Listen, Sandra, I've never desired another woman until you proposed this open marriage a minute ago. Do you honestly think I'd sit idly by while you go on a date? As Sandra gazed at me, with a mix of sorrow and frustration, I pressed on, determined to address the situation head-on. You initiated this, and we're going to see it through. You'll go on your date with Matthew, and I'll accompany Mary. Whatever unfolds is beyond our control, but I hope we can maintain our commitment and marriage after Friday night. Until then, I'll be staying in the guest room, and any intimacy between us is off the table. The mere thought of you desiring another man wounds me too deeply to even consider being close to you. At this moment, I feel nothing for you. Sandra's tears mingled with her anger, a sight that would usually prompt me to offer comfort, but not under these circumstances. After allowing her a few moments to collect herself, I continued my tone resolute. Starting next week, we'll attend counseling to unravel why I seem inadequate to you. If you can help me understand why I fall short, perhaps we can salvage our marriage. But let me be clear, the responsibility lies squarely with you now. The notion of you yearning for another man tends me to end this marriage immediately, but I'm willing to confront this maturely. Our future hinges on Friday night and our feelings afterward. Just remember, Sandra, whatever unfolds is a consequence of your decision to pursue this date with Matthew. I have no intention of altering my plans, and you'll have to reckon with the aftermath, whatever it may entail. Sandra remained tearful and bewildered, offering no words as she exited the room. It wasn't long before I heard her conversing with her sister on the phone, a scenario I had anticipated. Evidently, her sister's response was less than supportive, because an hour later, Sandra returned. Assuming her guise of sweetness and innocence, I remained vigilant, immune to her attempts at manipulation. Sweetheart, I may have made a mistake about going out with Matthew. I've decided to cancel it. I don't want to be with anyone else, she confessed. That's your choice. Sandra, but you started something, and I'm determined to see it through. Whether you go out or stay home, I won't cancel my plans with Mary. You made your intentions clear and caused me pain on purpose. The only way forward for me now is to see where this leads. Maybe you're right, and we need to explore dating others and embrace an open marriage, but you have to understand there are always consequences to your choices. This was your decision, and you accepted his invitation before talking to me. That hurt, and it's not something I can easily forgive. I asserted firmly, attempting to clarify once more. Sandra pleaded, Donnie, it wasn't really a date. You have to believe me. It was just a casual after-hours gathering. It's not significant. I'll cancel it. Can't we just go out together on Friday night? Ignoring her entreaties, I grabbed a beer and sought solace on the patio. I spent the night in the guest room and the remainder of the week listening to Sandra's tearful limitations echoing through the evening. The following day, I received a call from Sandra's sister, Patricia. Donnie, is it true you're planning to go out with another woman this week? You can't do that to Sandra. She loves you so much. Patricia, it's evident you're not fully informed about the situation or haven't heard the whole story. Your sister agreed to go on a date with a coworker without consulting me. She returned home and simply announced her plans. Showing little regard for my feelings or the integrity of our marriage, I've made the decision to go on a date myself, and afterward, we'll reassess our relationship. I've remained faithful to Sandra since the day I met her. However, I'm uncertain if I can continue in a marriage where my wife desires other men. That's a hurdle I'm struggling to overcome. Do you understand, Patricia? Yes, Donnie, I do. I didn't realize she acted so thoughtlessly. Please be patient with her. She may not even realize the hurt she's causing you and may think it's insignificant. Patricia, I am exercising patience. Despite my hurt, I haven't taken any drastic measures, but she must face the consequences of her actions. I responded firmly. After Patricia's intervention, Sandra finally grasped the gravity of her actions and the impact they had on our relationship and my feelings. She apologized sincerely and begged me to reconsider, asking me to cancel both our dates. However, I was determined to bring balance and understanding back to our marriage. Knowing that your wife wants another man is a painful experience I wouldn't wish on anyone. So, unless you've been in my situation, please don't judge my decisions. I arranged for Mary to pick me up that night because I wanted her to meet my wife and to make sure she was comfortable going out with a married man. On Friday night, even though Sandra didn't want to go out with her coworker, I insisted she keep her plans with Matthew. She bristled at me calling him her boyfriend, trying to assure me he was just a friend. Sandra dressed nicely for her date, wearing a cute dress that highlighted her natural beauty. I was relieved that she didn't try to look overly seductive, which gave me a bit of hope for our relationship. Though nervous about meeting Mary, I insisted Sandra greet her to affirm our shift to an open marriage. Despite her protest, I felt justified in my actions. Sandra was clearly surprised when Mary arrived promptly at 6 p.m. Mary was very different from Sandra, tall, well-toned, and dressed in a way that showed off her curves, while I wore a fitted sports jacket that highlighted my muscular build. Ignoring Sandra's discomfort, I even coerced her into snapping a few photos of Mary and me together, further stoking her ire. We presented a striking couple, as if posing for a fitness magazine cover. It was evident that Sandra seethed with jealousy and resentment, realizing the Pandora's box she had opened may not be. I stifled my amusement as I introduced Mary and Sandra, inwardly smirking at Mary's cheerful greeting. Sandra, it's lovely to meet you. Donnie mentioned your open marriage, and I'm genuinely happy for you. I've had my eye on this handsome man for the past year, so you can imagine my excitement when he called me on Sunday. I hear you've also found a new boyfriend. Good for you. Mary's words seemed innocent enough, but I could practically see Sandra's rage simmering beneath the surface. Unable to formulate a response before the doorbell interrupted us, Sandra's composure faltered as Matthew arrived, and I observed her nervousness as I ushered him inside. I couldn't help but be surprised by Sandra's choice. Matthew stood at about 5 feet 7 inches, nearly the same height as Sandra in her 4-inch heels. He lacked an attractiveness, and I couldn't fathom what Sandra saw in him. Weighing no more than 150 pounds, with receding hair, he posed no physical threat, but his presence still posed a challenge to our relationship. I could tell Matthew was intimidated as I towered over him, his hand feeling small and clammy in mine as I exaggeratedly shook it. "My wife is all set for your date night. Enjoy yourself," I said, a hint of mischief in my tone, leaving Matthew momentarily speechless and seeking reassurance from Sandra. Mary and I shared a laugh as we departed, fully aware of the storm brewing within Sandra. I felt no remorse. If anything, I hoped this would bring about a resolution. Coming home, the following morning, Mary dropped me off at my house around 6 a.m. Our farewell kiss lingered, a gesture I was certain Sandra observed from the window. Mary and I had enjoyed a delightful evening together, a lovely dinner, followed by dancing at one of her favorite clubs, a romantic stroll along the beach after the club closed, and breakfast before she drove me home. It had been an eventful night. Mary proved to be an engaging companion, an exceptional dancer, possessed a wonderful sense of humor, and was undeniably attractive. Our chemistry was undeniable, and her kisses were electrifying. Although we didn't go beyond kissing, I couldn't ignore the potential for an exciting relationship with Mary. Yet, Sandra dominated my thoughts all night. Even as we danced, I kept thinking about my wife. Walking along the beach reminded me of our time in Hawaii, stirring up bittersweet emotions. Every moment, except for the goodnight kiss, was overshadowed by thoughts of Sandra. With mixed feelings of happiness and sorrow, I walked into the house, wondering if it would ever feel like home again. Sandra was waiting for me, and immediately started accusing me without any greeting. "Nice kiss. What else did you do all night?" She spat. Ignoring her hostility, I greeted her calmly. "Good morning, Sandra. How was your date? Matthew seems like a nice guy. You slept with her?" She erupted angrily. "Sandra, it was just our first date. You shouldn't jump to conclusions," I responded, trying to calm things down. "First date? Are you planning to see her again?" She demanded. "I'm not sure. Are you planning to see your boyfriend again?" I countered. "Of course not. I don't want him," she replied. "I want you," she confessed tearfully. "Well, you seemed to want him last week." "What changed?" I asked, a bit frustrated. It became clear that Sandra realized the seriousness of her actions. Maybe she truly saw her outing with Matthew as just spending time with a friend, like hanging out with one of her girlfriends. After all, Matthew wasn't a threat, and looking back, I might have overreacted. However, the idea that any woman would expect her husband to be comfortable with her going out with another man, even innocently, still baffled me. I pulled Sandra close into my embrace. "Sandra, I love you dearly, but I cannot tolerate the idea of being with a woman who desires other men under any circumstances. I refuse to accept infidelity, and if it ever happens again, if you lie to me or betray my trust, I will not hesitate to end our marriage. Do you understand?" I held her gaze firmly as I spoke. Sandra reciprocated the embrace, showering me with kisses. "Yes, darling, I would never cheat on you. I have never desired anyone else but you." This situation was different. Sandra held me close, her tears soaking my shirt. "It wasn't a date. What you had with that woman was a date. We had dinner, but Matthew was so rattled after encountering you and injuring his hand. He insisted on taking me home immediately afterward. It wasn't enjoyable, and I had a dreadful time. He dropped me off before 8 p.m., and I've been here, replaying scenarios in my mind, while agonizing over what you might have been doing with her all night, and then seeing you kiss her like that." She trailed off, succumbing to tears once again. I held Sandra close, reassuring her that everything would be okay. Despite the gravity of the situation, I couldn't help but chuckle inwardly at the thought of Matthew meeting his muscle-bound competition. My firm handshake with him had left me confident that he would be a perfect gentleman that evening, which was one reason I insisted on meeting him before Mary and I departed. Sandra, let's set aside last night's events for now, but I'm serious about seeking counseling. There are things I still need to understand, and you need to comprehend my feelings too. If we can work through this and rebuild trust, then I won't see Mary or any of the other women who persistently ask me out. I said earnestly. Sandra's eyes widened as she realized Mary wasn't the sole concern. I started sleeping in her bed again, a sign that we were moving back toward normal and clarity. Counseling was really helpful for us. Mrs. Stewart created a caring and supportive atmosphere. She patiently explained to Sandra how her actions had made me feel small and hurt. Sandra tried to explain that she didn't see Matthew as someone she was romantically interested in, just as a friend. She said she never called their time together a date, just a night out with her friend Matthew, like hanging out with her girlfriends. With Mrs. Stewart's help, Sandra began to understand how important it is to have clear boundaries in a relationship where you only have one partner. Spending time with other men instead of your husband isn't okay. Sandra said that I was being mean by dating another woman, especially since this woman was more beautiful than her. She insisted it was unfair and unjust. Mrs. Stewart intervened, providing insights from my perspective and offering viewpoints that helped soothe Sandra's agitation. When it was my turn to address the situation, I acknowledged that I now comprehended Sandra's intentions, but reiterated my stance on her spending time with other men. Turning to Sandra, I spoke firmly. Sandra, I love you, but you shattered my heart when you mentioned going out with Matthew. My military training instincts kicked in and I felt compelled to fight back. If you were considering seeing other men, then I felt compelled to respond by dating other women. It's a decision I never wanted to make and I regret that it happened, but the responsibility lies with you. If a similar situation arises in the future, you'll find divorce papers on the table within a week. I refuse to tolerate infidelity. I understand that you may not have perceived it as a date, which is why I'm willing to work on our marriage, but let this serve as a warning. Never attempt something like that again. After the intense exchange, a palpable shift occurred in our dynamic. Sandra became more attuned to my emotions and our communication deepened. We transformed this absurd ordeal into a catalyst for strengthening our marriage. Our therapy sessions continued for several months, during which we discovered new methods to prioritize each other in our relationship. Mary displayed remarkable understanding and took the initiative to reach out to Sandra, assuring her that she would refrain from pursuing her husband. She made it clear that while she would step back, she remained open to stepping in if Sandra ever chose to end things with me, recognizing the gravity of her actions and the potential loss of our relationship. Sandra underwent a profound realization. She understood the importance of our bond and the consequences of her choices. Never again did she provide cause for jealousy or entertain the thought of being with another man. She grasped the significance of a committed relationship and accepted responsibility for her decisions. While Sandra and Matthew continued their friendship, Matthew was cautious about making any moves or starting a romantic relationship, careful not to overstep boundaries. Thinking back on everything, I had a realization. Sometimes women can't understand logical thinking. Second story, boyfriend accuses me of cheating every few months. So just to give some background, I've been with my boyfriend for 3 years. The first few months were great, but things changed after we used drugs together. During the come-down, he started accusing me of having a vibrator inside me. I offered to let him check and even showed him the one we had in our drawer, but he ignored it. Later on, he accused me of sleeping with his friend who was staying with us. I've never cheated on anyone and tried to prove my innocence, but he won't listen unless I admit to something I didn't do. Recently, I stayed with my parents to clear my head. When I returned, he found condoms and accused me of putting them there. I haven't used condoms in over 3 years, so I'm baffled. I think he might have planted them to make false accusations against me. Now, I feel like apologizing just to keep the peace. Even though I didn't do anything wrong, I want our relationship to work, but every day feels like it could end. I'm really struggling. I know it's wrong to apologize for something I didn't do, but I'm desperate to make things better. The idea of admitting to cheating when I have it makes me physically sick, but I don't know what else to do.